But that's where it is. Now, there is a little bit of infighting happening in the Trump camp, a little bit of tea, if you will. And I do love this. Trump family dunks on DeSantis. You're stealing our bit. Donald Trump says the Florida governor is mirroring the former president right down to the hand gestures. There is a little bit of truth to this. Let's take a look at this. Is Ron DeSantis copying Donald Trump?
Anybody here would do it.
Project to get
Judges are a priority.
And honestly, we have businesses that have been locked down and lives destroyed for over a year based on saying no COVID vaccine passports made in China and shipped here. Why would we want so many important things
Can we take them?
to us be at the whim of China?
Okay, maybe this.
To us be at the whim of China.
Okay, this is him. He's just signing. That is fine. But he didn't steal writing from Donald Trump. You know what I mean? Anyway, the eerie similarities are not just in MAGA ideology, but Trumpian body language. And this actually ties into another Ben thread that I will focus on here. I think Ron DeSantis needs to be studied and maybe even not just studied, but definitely openly ridiculed. Oh, this wasn't from, it was from Judd Legume, sorry, who talked about the Ron DeSantis playbook, okay? About how Ron DeSantis loves getting in the media. Another carbon copy of Donald Trump, by the way. The Chapo boys did a good job of talking about this as well. Here's how Ron DeSantis repeatedly manipulates the media. First, he makes a splashy announcement with a simple but misleading narrative. Last week, for example, he announced that 20 people were arrested for voter fraud. If you recall, I talked about this last week when it happened. Ron DeSantis, who won his gubernatorial race against Gillum, who then, of course, was his political career was destroyed after that. But Ron DeSantis, who defeated Andrew Gillum by like an incredibly tiny margin, that immediately turned around and in that same ballot destroyed one of the ballot provisions that Floridians voted for by much wider margins that actually would offer the restoration of rights to felons, that would give felons the right to vote in the state of Florida. Ron DeSantis used all of his power in the Republican state legislature to immediately apply a poll tax to said felons who now had actually gotten their right restored, their right to vote restored. And it was ridiculous, and yet there's kind of nothing you can do about it, okay? So he now is weaponizing that against some people who didn't know they couldn't fucking vote. Here it is. He threw out this Governor DeSantis announces the arrest of 20 election criminals. Then DeSantis uses the simple announcement to generate headlines that benefit him politically. In this case, DeSantis is trying to appeal to the Republican voters who believe that Biden stole the 2020 election from Trump. DeSantis' announcement of these arrests, a campaign-style event held in a Florida courthouse, successfully generated that would appeal to Republican voters looking for validation of Trump's false claims about election fraud. Florida bus 20 ex-cons accused of voter fraud. DeSantis says Governor Ron DeSantis announces 20 violating election laws will be arrested. And CBS News and every other one of these fucking dumbass outlets covers it as though it's like a legitimate thing. And not a basically racist criminal action and a complete fucking overreach by a psychotic governor who actually is so desperately trying to be relevant in mainstream news because of his own personal desires of running against Donald Trump or being seen as the main guy who could replace Donald Trump within the Republican infrastructure. Okay? DeSantis' announcement had lots of political theatrics. Republican activists sat in the jury box waving signs saying my vote counts, but there were few specifics offered on individual cases. A review of the court records of the 20 people charged reveals why. This isn't a bunch of people seeking to manipulate an election by voting illegally. Many of the people charged were told by Florida officials that they were eligible to vote. Peter Washington, for example, is a 59-year-old man who was convicted of attempted sexual battery in 1996. During his assimilation class in prison, he was told by a probation officer that his civil rights would be automatically restored upon his release from prison, because that's what Florida, that's what the much more popular ballot measure in Florida was. Okay? He did his time in prison. He got out of prison. He should be able to vote now, and people have told him he's able to vote now. Subsequently, Washington received a voter registration form in the mail, filled it out, and was provided with a voter card from Orange County, Florida. So at no step of the way did people turn around and say, hey, you can't vote because you're a felon. Washington also reported he received jury summons on 3 separate occasions, which he reported for. In Florida, jury service is unavailable to ex-felons until their civil rights are restored. So he thought, well, I'm going to fucking jury duty. I'm getting my voter ballot sent to me. Why the fuck shouldn't I be able to vote? Of course he's going to think he can vote. Washington and the other 19 individuals were charged with 1 count of false affirmation, voting, or elections. But that charge requires prosecutors to prove that the accused acted willfully, which means not a single one of those people is most likely going to actually end up in jail. But, 1, they're now tied up in a court proceeding against a person who is weaponizing the entire might of, the state of Florida against them. Okay? 2, even if they don't actually go to prison at all, Ron DeSantis already got his fucking media cycle. He got the PR boost he needed to, maintain his prominence in Republican circles. He already got the headline. In this case, Washington genuinely believed he was eligible to vote because he was told by a parole officer, received a voter registration form in the mail, and was summoned for jury service. The final step of the Ron DeSantis Florida media manipulation playbook is counting on the media and the public to lose interest as the truth slowly trickles out. Ultimately, whether these charges could be proved at trial may not matter. Most of the individuals targeted by DeSantis have little education and few financial resources, and they're being threatened with the full resources of the state of Florida. One individual, this part is really fucked up. One individual charged with voter fraud was reportedly arrested at 6 a.m. when a SWAT team banged on his door. A helicopter circled overhead and armed officers were posted in his backyard. He was not permitted to put on clothes and was taken to jail in his underwear. He's a clone. Fuck that rapo. Fuck that rapo. God, I hope he rots. Are we sympathizing with this rapist? First of all, it's attempted sexual battery, okay? And it happened in 1996. If you have done a fucking violent crime such as that, or attempted to do a violent crime such as that, okay, and you go to prison, you should still be allowed to be a human being once you're out of prison, okay? Shut the fuck up. You absolute psychopathic weirdo. Not arrested at gunpoint for fucking supposedly doing voter fraud. Most of these defendants have already spent much of their lives tied up in the criminal justice system. In response to the charges of voter fraud, they had to come up with hundreds of thousands of dollars to post bail because now they're considered a security risk too because they already have priors. The pressure to plead guilty and resolve the situation quickly, especially in exchange for a favorable sentence, will be enormous. DeSantis used the exact same playbook when he falsely claimed that the math textbook publishers were targeting elementary school students. He generated the headlines he wanted, and by the time the truth came out, most of the media had moved on. So remember that. He does this with everything. Call them Hasan. I hate how people are treated in prison, let alone how inhumanely they're treated once they get out. People refuse to let anyone be a human again. Yeah, it's fucked up. I swear the same thing is happening to me, except not arrest. I had a felony in 04, have been sent voter registration for years, have voted for years. I just sent my jury summons in on Friday, literally. Okay, well, I hope you don't go to jail. And anyway, Donald Trump is also making fun of, the Trump family is also, like I said, making fun of Ron DeSantis. Trump and DeSantis have sniped at others in public, each without specifically naming the other. DeSantis criticized the Trump administration for measures aimed at locking down the country at the dawn of the COVID-19 pandemic, while appearing on the conservative Ruthless podcast earlier this year. Drama. DeSantis' clout has grown among Republican voters because of the actions that he's taken, like I just mentioned to you. Trump has privately voiced anger over DeSantis' supposed lack of gratitude and refusal to rule out challenging the former president in 2024. For his part, the ex-president had gone on the incredibly pro-Trump TV channel OAN to strongly suggest that DeSantis was gutless. Both Trump and DeSantis have tried to publicly downplay the budding feud as supposed invention of the news media. In the time since Trump, behind closed doors, trashing DeSantis as charisma-free, has even toyed with launching a 2024 presidential campaign near the governor's mansion in Florida, which would double as an obvious effort to troll DeSantis. But just as DeSantis was enjoying some of the gains in polls for potential 2024 Republican contenders, Trump's Florida estate Mar-a-Lago was raided by the FBI. Oh, DeSantis also did the same thing with a Disney story, too. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and state agencies filed to dismiss lawsuit challenging Reedy Creek Improvement District dissolution, quietly going back on the things that they had done before. And, of course, that raid led to a bump. Okay, where is the actual, a culture war very soon after? We saw those specific topics incorporated into the Florida governor's talking points. This has happened enough times that Trump's eldest son has come to believe, according to a person familiar with the matter, that DeSantis and his staff likely looked to his Twitter account for inspiration and rated for their latest policy ideas or red meat hurling rhetoric. Honestly, at the end of the day, here's the reality, okay? Here's the fucking reality. At the end of the day, this just implies that you are the second best, okay? You want to be Cardi, but you're not. You feel me? You want to be Cardi. You desperately want to be Cardi, but you're not. You're not Playboy Cardi, okay? You're just a shitty second best. It shows me that he doesn't have the capacity to read the room and like figure out new culture war grievances on his own too. A thing that Donald Trump is very good at. Anyway, so there's that. Okay, we're gonna move on. Before we watch the decay of Andrew Tate,